Classes are yet to resume at Tshwane University of Technology 3 days into the second semester. Protesting students blocked access to the campus over the new NSFAS banking system, historic debt and accommodation issues. SRC President Newzroom Afrika says they've tabled the concerns that they have with the system.
That there's a speedy implementation of a direct payment with a money laundering company called Izaga, which is given a responsibility to facilitate millions of rands of the vulnerable and the poor. So yeah, I think we've tabulated our concerns that it cannot be business as frequent when uncounted students have not received their allowances for June and July, and they are home staffed, and yeah, look, they've not received what is due to them.
All right, let's try to get your reaction to the story now. Bring in the SA Youth Economic Council spokesperson, Sthandiwe Msomi, who joins us now via our video link this morning. Sthandiwe, it's lovely to see you. Thanks very much indeed for making time. I mean, it seems there are various issues to be tackled here, but let me start here. Has NSFAS, at least from your vantage point, done enough to communicate what necessitates this new system?
Thank for having us on your show today. And to respond to your question, it is a flat-out no. And the problem, I think, the first and foremost is the fact that the rolling out of this new banking system is happening right in the middle of the academic year. And to do that at a time where students are writing exams, where students need to buy food and their necessities to be able to show up for their exams and to start the second semester is very reckless. And so just from the point of view of when this banking system has been implemented, for us as the SA Youth Economic Council, shows a sign of recklessness and poor planning. But also when we look at using third-party service providers to issue out allowances to students, that method in and of itself creates so many steps and unnecessary bureaucracy in students being able to receive their allowances and other payments. And in previous years, NSFAS used to ensure that universities pay out funds to students and they pay out those funds to universities later. And if you look at the party that students interact with the most, students will usually interact with the university as their first port of call. But now, if allowances are being issued by a third-party service provider who you have no idea where they're located or where their offices are, it creates such a problem for students who want to take up queries about their allowances or any other NSFAS-related issues that they used to be able to go to universities to at their offices to make a query for. And so this whole system in and of itself has created unnecessary steps for poor black students who need their allowances to be energized to show up to class. And as from the stance of our council, the timing as well of rolling out this program is very reckless.
Yeah. I mean, you know, the previous payment system itself wasn't perfect. In fact, we've spoken to many student representatives who had serious concerns about that as well. But the sense I'm getting now is that in an attempt to fix it, NSFAS may have potentially made it worse.
Of course, they've made it completely worse. And it's quite concerning because also if you're relying on third-party providers, we haven't been told much about whether or not these providers or service providers have the necessary banking licenses and financial services accreditation to be able to roll out such programs. But also when we speak about the rolling out of this program, we also need to look at how increasingly commodified student matters have become and education has become. Because if a third service party provider is being able to roll out these allowances, that's business for someone else. But if that business is going to be rolled out in a way that is reckless, that is unorganized, and that is all over the place, it creates issues for students. And already students and NSFAS have to go through so many processes of having to prove their poverty to be able to get an education and get these allowances. And so for students to go from the month of June to July without allowances because of these new mechanisms that have been put in place is completely unacceptable. And so as the SA Youth Economic Council, we urge NSFAS together with universities to re-look at the model, because also I've seen other student leaders as well speak about protests and wanting to demonstrate their frustration with regards to this new payment system, right? And as the second semester is going to start in the next week for some universities, those those are the same students who are not going to be able to participate in academic programs and be able to uplift themselves through the vehicle of education. And so I think it's important for universities and NSFAS to sit together to look at how we can revisit the old model that was used because it worked perfectly fine, and be able to correct whatever errors there were in that system, as opposed to allowing capitalists who want to exploit the markets of students to come in and want to roll out these banking systems and not even do it properly.
Yeah. Let's speak a bit more about those protests. I mean, we've seen some students at TUT make good on that promise to you. In fact, that institution, as far as we understand, hasn't been able to resume the academic calendar for the past 3 days because of those protests. It sounds to me that if those protests are directed to the institution, that's a bit misplaced, because TUT doesn't really have a hand in this if this is a NSFAS system change.
Of course, and we've spoken about it quite frequently, that it's quite ludicrous that NSFAS offices have moved all the way to Cape Town. There should be a NSFAS office in near TUT, in Johannesburg, in KZN, where students actually migrate to go and study, as opposed to all the way in Cape Town. And because, as I said, the first sort of interaction that students have with the education system as a whole is universities. And so when they want to take out their frustrations, they're going to protest within the university premises. But ideally, this conversation is broader than just the allowances, which is a problem, but we also need to raise up the issue of why NSFAS offices have been relegated to Cape Town, and why can't there be a NSFAS branch where students themselves can go and protest when they have issues and talk directly to NSFAS officials who will help them with the banking system and any other query that they have with their funding. I mean, at the moment as well, apart from the allowances, there's been thousands, I think around 10,000 registered students, at least at VETS, that have been defunded by NSFAS, and they only found out during the course of the academic year. And that creates a plethora of problems, because when the 2024 academic year starts, thousands of students are going to be barred from registering because of outstanding debt. I mean, so all of these inefficiencies of NSFAS being located far away, of third-party service providers issuing out allowances, and this, defunding of students all of a sudden, creates so many efficiencies that affect the academic performance of black students from poor and working class families. And these are issues that we can't sit on our laurels on and not talk about and take up with the Department of Higher Education and NSFAS, because they all add up and ultimately affect the academic performance of students. Yeah,
all right. Sthandiwe Msomi, thanks very much for giving us your take on the story. And I suppose NSFAS is going to have to say something sometime soon to clarify at the very least some of these changes and to respond to the concerns you've raised. Sthandiwe Msomi is the spokesperson of the SA Youth Economic Council. Thanks once again for your time.